Hello everybody, my name is Violet Chantal, and this video, I'm gonna leave as unedited as I can. I have no notes written for this. I want this to be as like off the cuff, and just as like pure, I guess, as possible. Um, I have admittedly, like as much as I'm like proud of who I am, I've been really hesitant to like make videos about like topics so straight on about like, being trans and like the trans experience and stuff like that. Again, I'm very proud of who I am, but like, I've just been kind of hesitant to make videos so directly about it just because like as I I'm proud about it, there's a lot about it. I just like to just kind of keep like private, and stuff like that. But um something happened today that like this video is titled about it, and just like in general this last week has been horrendous with like media coverage and stuff like that, and this was for me the cherry on top. That honestly, like I said to myself, like my platform is very small admittedly, but to be totally honest, like I know I'm kind of painting myself on a pedestal a little bit, but there's not a ton of like just on YouTube like trans people that are like into like the music hip hop scene the way that like I am, for example. And so to be honest, like I'm not, again, I know I'm putting myself on a bit of a pedestal, but like I said to myself, like I want to talk about this like because of that. Just because I feel like my like take on all of this can be a bit more like detailed than just being like, oh, like, what the hell, stuff like that. And I was like, I want to like finally talk about stuff like this because I've considered it again in the past, but this is, I think, like the point where it really hit me, like I want to talk about this. So to get into it finally, because I know I'm rambling. So today, if you at all are into music or whatever, J. Cole dropped a surprise project. It was called Might Delete Later. And there's two reasons why it's getting a lot of, well, three reasons why, because it's a J. Cole project that's surprise drop. Two, because the last track, is a response to Kendrick Lamar and the Like That verse on Future Metro Booming's We Don't Trust You project. But also something that I found out about the project last night. I listened to the Kendrick diss or whatever, and admittedly, like I thought it was pretty bad. And one thing I want to clarify first is I'm a big J. Cole fan. And so like I listened to that and I was like, yeah, I don't know. I just don't really think like it sounded like he didn't even like want to do it. Also, admittedly, and just like I just didn't really like think what he was saying was that like compelling in terms of like attacking Kendrick back. And so that's just like my own opinion. But also, I am also a massive Kendrick Lamar fan, and that's something I've never talked about on this channel. But I am a massive Kendrick Lamar fan. And so like admittedly, like I was sort of like, okay, like I don't know, I'm more on like Kendrick's side admittedly. But what what happened this morning is I was getting up and getting ready for work because that's all I really knew about like the project last night. And I wake up in the morning, I'm ready for work, and like immediately when I wake up in the morning, like this is maybe not the best thing, but I check like Reddit and Twitter and stuff like that, like quickly or whatever, for like a few minutes, and then I get like ready for the day. And specifically I was like working today, so I was getting ready for that, and I'm looking on my phone, and the first thing I see on Twitter is this like genius screenshot of these lyrics right here. I'll just show it on screen. From the new J. Cole project. Uh, and it like I have obviously seen, especially this last week, coincidentally, so much just transphobic garbage on the internet, and like and unfortunately it's always going to be there. That's something I'm not going to deny. Like I'm very aware of just like the unfortunate circumstances that my life is going to have of like harassment and like targeting and all that stuff. It is, I'm not trying to justify all of it, of course, but it is just a sad reality of the life that I've been given. Because like one thing I want to say off the bat, I didn't choose to be this way. No trans person chooses to be this way. This is just who we are. So like it's just like an unfortunate part of like my life and stuff like that. But this one hit me a bit differently, just because like for a few reasons, but mainly it hit me differently because like I mentioned, I'm a big J. Cole fan. And of course, like I'm making this a bit about myself, I understand that, but I want to be honest about how I feel. I began my transition in August of 2021. I realized I was trans. I had a lot of signs and I knew a lot of things like before then, really. But my egg, as they call it, fully cracked at the end of June of 2021. And I began my transition like sort of near like the end of August. And one of the like very, very like I actually think if I remember correctly, like when I really began like my transition, which was like around like the very, very end of August, like beginning of September, the first, and I'm not joking about this, and I will show photos of this, the very first thing I ever did, like by myself, like fully just like being myself and like, dressing in certain ways that I wanted to and just presenting and talking in certain ways that I wanted to, like, just being more myself. The very first thing I did is I saw J. Cole live on the off-season tour in Boston. And here's some photos of that. I know this is a very, very privileged thing to say, but I was such a fan of J. Cole, and I'd wanted to see him live for like years now because I wanted to go to the For Your Eyes Only tour. That's my favorite J. Cole album. And I wanted to see him on the KOD tour, and I just wasn't able to both times. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna pay for VIP tickets. I had like the money for it, and like I was really excited. And the concert was fantastic. Like regardless of how I feel about like J. Cole now, um, like I still love a lot of his like older music. Like I will always acknowledge that. As much as like I will not be supporting him anymore, obviously. But like still like that was like an important moment for me because it was really like the first thing I'd ever really like I really ever did like just fully like by myself, living as like a trans woman. It really, really was. Um and so just now fast forwarding to now where it's like I'm deeper into it and like I'm fully living my life like the way I want to and just being myself. Just like waking up and like seeing somebody who in an unintentional sort of way of course is actually like a pretty like important part of like my own journey. And just like seeing him like degrade like a trans man and talk about his genitalia and try to like have that like define who he is as a person and like all this stuff and being like like there are no like I forget the exact lyrics admittedly but just being like I'm seeing like hints of like a trans person or whatever like that and like like you're no Fred or whatever and like like even with like his chosen gender like 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 there's still like a a pussy or whatever he exactly says. And like there's like a cancel culture thing also in there. I forget the exact lyrics. I showed it on the screen already. The point though, that I'm trying to say, is that it is genuinely, and I understand that because of just who I am as a person, I'm gonna have like a stronger reaction to this than most people. But this is how I feel. It is one of the worst lines in the history of hip hop. It just honestly is, especially when given the context of like how it is in the overall project. Because the very first song, if you have not like listened to the project, the very first song, there's a line about being canceled like a Dave Chappelle Netflix special. And if you know anything about Dave Chappelle, then obviously like, you know why, a big reason as to why he's getting canceled and all this stuff. And then like, I think the even more crazy part about it, given like the grand scheme of like, what J. Cole's built himself up to be and like the legacy that he has built, is on his diss to Kendrick, he talks about how his last album was like tragic and all this stuff. And he's referencing Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, which, as most people probably know, there's a song on that album called Auntie Diaries, which is Kendrick talking about two members of his family. One's a trans woman, one is a trans man, and how like one of them, and just in general, like were like especially one of them was like the major reason how like he was introduced to hip hop and like it changed his life, and he talks about that. And just like misgendering and like slurs being thrown at and just all of this stuff. And that song is definitely from like a cis point of view. Absolutely. But that's part of why it was so good to me and so powerful, because like it was a perspective on things of like confusion, but like an overall like acceptance and allyship, but also like definitely like there's things about that song that are very, very like, like, oh, okay, but like there's some things that are uncomfortable about it, but like again, like I feel like it's such like a raw and honest like depiction of like like being like a family member and like having something like that happen, and like just like the exploration of that, and just in general, like having an artist like Kendrick Lamar, who I've been a massive fan of since 2016, to Pimp Butterfly. I know I'm a white person and all that stuff, and that album definitely deals with like being like black and all this stuff. That album really, really impacted me and in a lot of ways changed my view on music like forever. Like, and I remember when like Untitled Unmastered came out, like that surprise release, and like I was so over the moon, and like I pre-ordered the vinyl, the autograph vinyl, all this stuff. And then when Damn came out, was one of the best weeks of my life because that came out. I remember when the Heart Bar 4 came out, and like, and that was absolutely phenomenal. And then when Damn came out, like I was in DC at the time, and like it was just incredible. And even the Black Panther stuff was pretty good. But you know, like just like having like an artist that means so much to me, like have a song like that, was so like meaningful to me. And I don't think everything about that song is perfect, of course, but like still, like it was such a massive moment in hip hop because like obviously like hip hop we can talk about like homophobia and just like like phobias in general like in like like the genres and stuff like that, but like specifically because like which is good. I feel like 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 being like gay or whatever you want to word it, and stuff like that, or just like exploring your sexuality or romantic interest like in terms of like hip hop and stuff like that has become a lot more like represented, which is great. And like as much as I hate to say like accepted, but like it has been, and unfortunately, a lot of it now has turned to like transphobia, and just in the media in general. Like there, it's just like you look at like the recent, like the current climate. I'm not even gonna focus so much right now on like on the political side of things. I hate the fact that being trans is a political issue, but like just like talking about the media in general, like the entertainment media. There is so much happening right now that is so insanely transphobic, and people are basically just getting away with it as much as like we're calling it out and stuff like that. Because like a lot of people admittedly brush it off because it doesn't impact them and stuff like this and all this stuff. And like there's also just like so much misunderstanding about like what it is to be trans, but also like the baseline thing that is such an important thing to say, and the fact that you even have to say this is insane. But like like we're just trying to live our lives. I don't know how else to say it. Like we're literally human. This is just like our experience, and we are such a small minority in the world. Like it hasn't been, I don't believe it's been updated for like a few years now, but like I remember like if they combined like the states and the Canada, I think we only make up, and this is including like non-binary people, like intersex people, everyone who falls under the trans umbrella, like we make up 1.5% of the population of the like entire US and Canada. Like like it just like us being attacked in general is crazy. But like when we're going up against all of this like bigotry and just harassment and hate, and it has been documented way too much, but like literal assault and murder on trans people, it is specifically Black trans women. It is just like it really 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 is like the last thing that we need right now is people in the media, like popular Twitch streamers, and now J. Cole rapping about like a trans man and like making fun of the fact that like, oh, like he has like a pussy or whatever, all this stuff. Like we are up against so much right now, to focus on the political side a little bit, again, like I hate that that's a factor, but there's a lot, that's at stake. Like admittedly, like for me, and this is definitely something that like is, it's up to me to figure out, and I'm going to, like, I haven't changed my name legally yet. And if I don't do that, by like, like the beginning of next year, which I will, like there's just been some unfair circumstances and me struggling to figure out like a middle name and all this silly stuff. I say it's silly just because like I've been overthinking it like way too much. But I've figured out recently like what I want my whole thing to be. Like if I don't get that done by like the beginning of next year, like given how this like upcoming election will go, there is like a chance that like I won't be able to like change like my gender marker and like my social security, like all this stuff, and like just my freedom to like like legally like be like, hey, like I identify as this, all this stuff, like that's gonna be ripped away. And when you go into account like what's happening in Florida right now with like the driver's licenses, and when you look at like Ohio and like bathroom bans, and like Texas is probably coming up soon, like when you put it all together, and just like there is just so much like that like is at stake for us. And then you have in the media people saying all of this stuff and like fervor like perpetrating like a narrative or like making fun of trans people, all this stuff. I need to stress something. Like, I understand, like, in comedy or something like that, like, nobody is off limits. I understand that. But also, when you are straight up attacking a group of people, that's a bit of a difference. And like making like fun of them, and trying to like stereotype them. Like there is a difference. There is a difference. And the thing about the J. Cole line that is really, really upsetting, especially, is there is such a lack of like understanding. And I understand that J. Cole is a cis man. I understand that. But there is such, like, he went out of his way to mention trans people. So I'm going to give my opinion about what he said, of course. But like, there is such a misunderstanding of like how like it is to be trans, really, when it comes down to just like your body. Like one thing in general, this doesn't have to do with trans people, like, fully, of course in this instance it is, but like just with anybody, like, why are we commenting on people's genitalia? Like it is extremely weird, and just like gross and creepy. I'm just gonna say it. And especially when it comes to like trans people, where like, for a lot, not everybody, who's trans has like, bottom dysphoria and all this stuff. But as somebody, I'm just going to be blunt, that does have bottom dysphoria, I'm just going to be very honest about my experience here in this video for a bit. Like hearing him like try to like stereotype like a trans man and make like a clever line of being like, oh, like this guy is like always going to be a pussy because like, it's like with him or all this stuff, like, it's pretty upsetting, especially because like, your genitalia actually does not have like that much to do with like the gender that you have. It actually has really nothing to do with it, honestly. I understand that, like, if you're born like as a guy or born as like a girl, like, yes, that's what you were born with. But like, if you go on like hormone therapy and stuff like that, especially, it just in general, it really doesn't matter. Like, if you identify as a certain like, gender, like, that's you, but like, especially when we're talking about like, like the argument people like to make of being like, oh, well, like, you're always going to be like, like a man, or always going to be like a woman, all this stuff. Like, when you're on hormone therapy, like, down there, like, it actually does change quite a bit, and it's actually a lot more similar to like like a cis girl or like a cis man, than people realize. And of course, I know like the vast majority of people are not going to know about this. Of course, I understand that. But like, just mixed with that, trying to like in a way like invalid, because he talks about like his chosen gender, who always like, those whole thing, like invalidating that, in a way, and then mixing it with like just the clear misunderstanding of like how it is to like identify as a certain like gender and stuff like that. Like, it's so like ridiculous. Like it also I like, it's just like there's just so much about just like people's like weird fascination with like our like how like our bodies are, and like if we want to like keep our bodies a certain way. It's just like so like weird, and like it's just like, it's gross. It's really gross. Like regardless of the fact that like I shared the fact that like, yes, like I have bottom dysphoria, for example, at the end of the day, like that's something that like I'm willingly talking about, like in general with like, trans people. Like there's many like trans people where like, they come up, like cis people will come up to you. And I'm not leaving like every cis person is bad. There's many allies, of course. But like, it's admittedly, like, just to be blunt, cis people will come up to you and be like, oh, have you had surgery or all this and that? Like, which is so like invasive and so like out of bounds. And so like having like J. Cole, a massively influential rapper, who has admittedly a very young fan base. Like, I'm 20, and like, so it's cut around that age, but he has people that are even like, like mid-20s, like, like around that same age, that like are very like impressionable, and don't know much about like, just like this stuff. Like, hearing stuff like that, like, they're not gonna know any better. And so when you have the media pushing all this stuff, like it's genuinely really problematic. Like everybody, like, it's actually really freaking problematic. And also, like, one thing I want to say too, and I admittedly might be misunderstanding this line a little bit, but like, he says like, I've been seeing hints of like trans something, and then saying like in today's like cancel culture, like, he won't last or something like that. Like, I don't know if I'm misunderstanding the line. And so like, if I am, like, I do apologize, but the way he sets it up is basically like clocking a trans man. And like the way I'm hearing it, thinking about it is like, like there's like hints of like, like a person or like whatever, and stuff like this. And like, so the way I'm reading it is like, so you're like clocking like a trans, the term clocking is, this is the best explanation of it, but it's like if you see like me in person, for example, like I don't pass, you know very well, yeah, admittedly. Also, passing does not invalidate the fact that like you are a man or a woman or like all this stuff. Like, we do not owe you hyper femininity or hyper masculinity. Like, we identify as we are, and that's all that matters. But like, still, like I'm just living my life, and like when you clock somebody, you're like, oh, that's like a trans person, all this and that, and it's basically like potentially targeting us in like harassment and discrimination, all this stuff. And so hearing him like sort of like word something like that, being like, oh, there's like hints of like a trans person in here, is really just like I really don't get it at all, like how people like can read that line and be like, oh yeah, that's okay. It's not. And one thing too, I might have started this point, and I kind of like went off on a bit of a tangent. My apologies. But one thing I really want to also stress too is like in the grand scheme of things, like him being so close to someone like Kendrick and then dissing him, but also on the same project talking about how Mr. All the Big Steppers was like a tragic album, and then saying this about like a trans person when Auntie Diaries was like a big moment on that album. It just like it just leaves me with like a pretty like icky feeling, and stuff like that. And like, of course, I know that not everybody who is like really involved with hip hop like listened to Auntie Diaries and was like, that's awesome. There's obviously other people who have not said anything that are like, probably were like, oh, like I don't like this, or we're like, oh, like get away from this, all this stuff. But it's like I want to say though that song genuinely had actually a pretty good impact on like like acceptance of trans people in the hip hop community. I know, like, again, this is like a privileged example, and some people might think this is like silly, and if it is, then whatever. This is just my experience. The day that Mr. All the Big Steppers came out, I actually, that same day, I went to the NBA Lever tour when it was in Massachusetts. That was the tour that had Earl Sweatshirt, Action Bronson, and Bully James with The Alchemist. And I wore a dress to that show. And I was not on hormones yet, all this stuff. Like, I very much was like, like really early into my transition, of course. And like everybody there who interacted with me was extremely nice to me and treated me no differently. I don't think I have any photos of me that day, for example, just to like kind of like, because I don't mind giving you guys like references and stuff like that. But when I went to go see Kendrick on the Big Steppers tour, I was, again, I know this is very privileged, but like I just want to like acknowledge like my own experience. I was front row for that show. That was like my big like birthday gift to myself that year, because that album came around around the same time when my birthday is. And I got the VIP tickets for the Boston show, and I was front row for it, and I was wearing like eye makeup and all this stuff, and like I was talking to people, and I was being like, yeah, my name is Violet, all this stuff, and everybody was so nice to me and stuff like this. And like just to be really honest about it, I don't think that would have been like the same way, honestly, if like there wasn't like a song like Auntie Diaries. I really don't think so. Like, I went to like the Call Me If You Get Lost tour, for example, and I was talking to like somebody there, and they asked me my name, and I was like, it was really early in my transition, like I had like shaved my hair and all this stuff at the time, because I was into that for a little bit. And I was like, my name is Violet, and they were like, that's awesome, so like there has been other examples, of course, before, but like just in general, that song actually did quite a bit. So just like almost 2 years later, now having this happen is so upsetting and so disappointing. And it's just so just terrible, because it's like we're already having such disgusting representation of us in media. Like, we just had the whole trans day visibility thing with the Easter thing, which was such a massive, like, I don't even know how to describe it, like beyond a mess. I don't know how to describe it. Like, that has been like a holiday, or we want to call it, for over a decade now. It just so happened to land on Easter. And I will, Biden and, the whole administration made a very big mistake, in my opinion, of like being like, oh yeah, like, this is like the year we're celebrating it. How the way they worded it was a little bit like declaring it, was a little bit, not the best idea, admittedly, just because of like how like people are like, people are just not aware. Just because like, it's great that like, they're trying to represent us. I mean, they don't really care about us, to be fully honest. I'm just gonna keep it real, because Biden, I'm gonna get political here, fuck it. Because like Biden has also put some stuff in place specifically for like athletes in sports that like definitely are not very fair to like trans people. And so like, they probably don't give a shit about us that much, but still, like, it's nice that like, like they're trying in a way, but like, just like so blatantly just being so unaware of like how that's gonna go over with people who don't know any better. Is it's not it just happened, and people were so transphobic online. And then like, for example, like in terms of like, just media stuff and us just living our lives, like there's such like a gross double standard for many people, there is of course, but like, so focus on my experience, there's such a gross double standard of like people being like, oh, like why are you so like proud and open about the fact you're trans, like just be like a normal girl like everybody else. We decide to do that, and it's like, oh no, like what the hell are you doing all this stuff, and then we saw that, for example, recently with like Hunter Schafer having an article recently where she was talking about like, yeah, no, I've been offered like, like roles where like I'm playing like, very much like a trans woman, but I just want to like be a girl now, and like I have the euphoria thing and stuff like that, and that was great, but like I just want to like live my life and just be me, and everybody was like, no, what do you mean, you're being like a hypocrite, all this stuff, like representation, like, oh, I thought you said only like, like trans people can play trans characters, like all of this just like ridiculous backlash. And so it's like, I understand that like, unfortunately, this is always going to be an issue, discrimination, but it's like there is just so much just like BS happening in the media right now with just like how we're being represented. And then you have like all these like, like Twitch streamers and just people like online that have such a massive influence and are just saying and just being so mean to us for no freaking reason. It makes no sense. Like I don't get it. I genuinely don't get it. Like I've read things of being like, oh, like maybe like they're secretly attracted to us or like all this, and then maybe like intimidated us. Like, oh, these are crazy theories. But like genuinely, like I'm not even gonna focus on that. Like I just don't get it. Like we're just like we're just living our lives. Like we are living our lives, and it's like I'm just gonna like say it too. Like everybody sometimes will be like, not everybody. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little caught up in my words right now. But like there's some people that are like, oh well, like like there, there's been a few examples of like, like trans people like committing like, like crimes or all this stuff, or like, domestic terrorism, like all this stuff that is obviously absolutely beyond despicable. And they're trying to use that to frame the entire community, when I'm just going to be blunt, every single community in the entire world has people like that within the community. And I'm just going to say it. I will just say it. I know I am white. I will always acknowledge that. But the biggest people who have done stuff like that are cis white people. So, specifically cis white men. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it. If I offend anybody, like, it's honestly what it is. This is how I feel. So it's just like, I don't know. Like, it's just, I just don't understand it. It's like you're trying to attack us and frame us as something that is like just as much of like an issue in terms of like your own community, because it's a worldwide issue. It has nothing to do with like, oh, like the trans community. Like this is where like the real hate's coming from, and like the grooming is coming from, which I don't even know how the whole narrative started. It like started like a few years ago, I believe, and now it's like a big freaking thing, and like that's a whole other issue. That is, like, that gets into some very complex stuff about just how terrible that is. Like, I'm like, again, like, this is a very personal video, but as somebody that has been groomed 2 times, I'm telling you right now, our community here, we're not groomers. I know, again, like, there's unfortunately probably some people like that, but again, the vast majority of us are not groomers, and so just trying to paint us as things that, like, it's just so upsetting. Like I don't understand what it is about us that people hate so much. I don't understand it. I really don't get it. We're literally just living our lives. Like the fact that I even have to make a video like this is like, I know I decided to make this video, but like just like I'm making a video like this, and it's just like, it's just so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. I know this is a big like word ramble thing, but it's just like, how else am I even supposed to react to stuff like this anymore? Like, this is just happening so much. And I just wanted to just talk about it a bit, because like it's been bothering me for a very long time, of course. And it was bothering me even before I transitioned, like, but now it's like, as I am a trans woman, like and I care about hip hop so much, and I love like the hip hop culture and all this stuff, and like just like I really really value like our representation in media. Of course, like just having somebody who for me is in an unintentional way an important part of these memories and these like experiences and these like journeys for me is deeply upsetting. It's very upsetting. And so I just don't know what else to say. It's just like it is at the worst possible time. And I am glad that, like, of course, there are people that are defending, J. Cole. And you know what? Like, I'm not, I'm sure this video, if people are watching this whole thing to now, it's not going to change their minds. I obviously understand that. But I just, I'm glad that at least there's a lot of people that are calling it out and being like, this is a horrible line. Like you don't even have to be trans to recognize the fact that this line in this verse is terrible. It is horrible. And so and just mixed with like the Kendrick diss, and I know Kendrick was the one that like brought up like the diss himself in terms of like really really like directly calling it out, and stuff like that. But like still, that does not justify saying the trans thing. And even if you think Mr. All Acceptance is a bad album, like the context of saying it's a tragic album when it has stuff like Auntie Diaries, is just really just gross. It's really really insensitive and just bad. And so yeah, I feel like I've been going in circles now. I just wanted to just ramble about this quickly, just because like I am a very very small creator. Obviously, people really only watch my weekend content. But still, like I want to talk about this just because like I do come from a place where like I do love this medium of art so much, and this genre and what it's done for me in my life. And I can just say more about it, obviously, of course. And so I just want to make a video about it. I'm gonna leave this unedited, honestly. I'm just gonna upload this as it is. I really don't want to like go back and edit this whole thing. So I'm upload this as it is. I'm again sorry. This is such a long ramble, but that's just how I feel. That's how I feel. And so yeah, it's just I just don't know what else to say. It's just really really disappointing. And so yeah, to anybody who watched this whole thing, thank you. This is really no concrete point. I'm making just a ramble, and so I apologize, but I just don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to say. And so yeah, so that's my little ramble on this. Thank you again for anyone who watched this, and I will be back with other videos soon about other things, hopefully. And yeah, so again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. All right, thank you so much. All right, bye.